Hello, termites. It's night 81. And what are we drinking? This right here is a little I can't pronounce things today. Belle Isle Honey Habanero Premium Moonshine, distilled from corn. Last time I had this was with my friend Vic Henley, who passed away. Makes me a little sad to see this, because then it's not, when people die during COVID, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, it doesn't really seem real till like real life resumes. It just seems like we're all in these weird things, and then once this happens, but sadly Vic will not be part of that. But every time I drink, I'll think of him, and then maybe it won't suck so much after a while. Be like, fun memories. This book, though, is really heating up. Termites. Tanya's been rehab. She didn't really participate. I mean, she did it, but she ain't gonna cry. She ain't gonna tell them shit. And then they had a bonfire, and she threw her lighter in it for a little pizzazz. Just you gotta like her. I mean, what's not to like? One thing got me at that last bonfire, though. Each night, the various groups sang, and sometimes throughout my stay, I'd sing "I Won't Take Less Than Your Love" since it was playing on the charts then. One night, I was standing there and heard another group start those familiar lines. By the second verse, every group was standing at the bonfire was singing at it. On the last night, when all the groups started singing it, I felt I'd seldom experienced such an outpouring of love and acceptance. Even on stage, when tens of thousands of people applauded, it was the closest I came to losing control of my emotions. Well, and I was glad it was dark, because I might have ended up on the hot seat. That's right, girl. You don't show them nothing. That day, the day I was sprung, I only had one regret, and that was about leaving my girls in the swamp. I hope somehow they'd learn something about our talks about making your own life. I believe that for many people, the counseling and classes make all the difference in the world, but not me. I just didn't relate to people lecturing me. Me neither. I lecture myself enough as it is. Exactly. I didn't have much of a chance to reflect on it anyway. I had to get to LA. I had a show to play at the Academy of Country Music Awards. My potential boyfriend, the note passer, oh yeah, let's see how this works out, came to pick me up and take me to LA for the ACMAs, but by the time we arrived, I knew we had nothing in common. Neither one of us had much to say. That Palm Springs, well, I guess he went to Betty Ford to pick her up. That's in Palm Springs. So they had a 2-hour ride back, and she already, maybe with traffic, 3 at the most, she decided they didn't have anything in common. For better or worse, we'd been back in the real world. I think that little flirtation mainly been a diversion for me, something to make me feel better and take my mind off the counselor's constant attempt to probe into my thoughts and feelings. Exactly. I had him take me to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel where my world was waiting. I checked into my suite and looked around. I could make all the telephone calls I want. I could smoke all the cigarettes I wanted. And even though I didn't want to, I knew I could order a drink from room service. I didn't believe I had a serious problem with drugs and alcohol, but I did know I liked the way I felt. I felt positive and happy and rested. First thing I did was call my actor friend of mine, Billy Long, and ask him to be my escort at the show. I wanted a friend on my arm, and when I walked in the lobby of Universal Amphitheater, Billy said he'd be honored, so the first day of the rest of my life involved a date with a gorgeous man. I had that going for me. There was a knock at the door. When I answered it, there stood Shirley and Rice Porter. I threw my arms around their necks. I was glad to be at the Beverly Wilshire instead of Camp Betty. I bet she's the only one that called it Camp Betty. Shirley and I ran off to Tovar's, get your hair done. Then we came through the door. Tovar went nuts. He kept telling me over and over how glad he was to see me and showed me the book he'd published. It was about the classic beauties he'd worked on, and he included me. I said, no, you're kidding. But I loved it. Shirley and I had him autograph our copies, and then got down to the business of being pampered for the rest of the afternoon. When we left Tovar's, we went back to Beverly Wilshire and put on our dresses. The music business offers women the great opportunity to play dress up as often as you'd ever want. Shirley had brought my dress, which had a black backless filtered top with a short ruffled white chiffon skirt. Shirley wore a blue sequin gown. With our new hair and makeup, we both felt like classic beauties. One problem, though, Shirley forgot to bring a pair of shoes for me. Uh-oh. I panicked and called Capitol's publicist, who was staying at the hotel, and she sent her niece off in a limo to shop for a selection of heels. By the time the four of us, Billy and I and Rose and Shirley, arrived at the show, I was very nervous, and not just because I was shoeless. Shirley, I don't know how these people are going to react to me. They're going to love you like always, she reassured. Man, I don't know which I hate worse. People looking at me and knowing I've been in the tank, or talking behind my back, or people smiling saying, oh, I'm so glad you got help. I've hated that, because I didn't think I really needed all that much help. It would have seemed too much like sympathy, and sympathy is something that's easier for me to give than to take. It's going to be fine, she kept saying, unless you have to go barefoot. She walked out in the audience. The applause was deafening. Started to sing If It Don't Come Easy, and the feeling was the top of the world. All of a sudden I forgot the words of the song. It wasn't coming easy at all. God, of all the times to do that, usually when singers like me or George Doan or Hank or blow lines, folks figure they're on something, or at least they did back when everybody was crazy. Here I was, fresh out of Betty Ford on national television, and I couldn't remember the words to my hit songs. I kept my chin up, kept waving to people and smiling, and just repeated a line and hoped nobody would notice. If they did, they didn't seem to care. After the show, everybody was crowding around me, telling me how good I looked and congratulations. I knew what they were really saying. We're glad you're back. I especially remember how kind Dwight Yoakam was. He said what I took a ton of strength, and it was an inspiration to other artists. We left the show and went to a record label party at La Dome. I talked so much about the place that Capitol decided to welcome me back to the world by hosting their post-awards gala at my old stomping grounds. Ruh-roh, that is not what Betty Ford said. If they'd asked the counselors at Betty Ford about it, I'm sure they'd been told not to. But drinking wasn't on my mind that night. Everybody else was drinking. I didn't even consider having one. I was on a natural high. Well, I wonder how long that lasts. We'll see. After I got back to the hotel and got to bed that night, I laid there thinking about the past 6 weeks of confinement and how much I'd like to ride to the beach and feel the wind in my hair. So the next morning, I phoned the concierge to arrange for a rental convertible. And then I phoned Shirley and said, "Get ready to hit the road, Squirrely Bird. We're out of here." We picked up the car, which turned out to be a BMW convertible, and headed to the beach. We sat there for hours while I got used to being able to do exactly what I wanted. We didn't talk about Betty Ford. I'd kept in touch about my stay through phone calls and letters when we talked, and I was all talked out about it. Instead, she caught me up on Nashville and her family and the fact that her daughter, Angel, was turning 16 in less than 10 days on March 25th. Can you see a bright light in my eyes right now? That's because an Amazon truck just pulled up the size of 7 semis. And I don't know what's in there because I haven't really ordered shit. I ordered a pair of shorts. Let's see what he walks up with. Oh. No, it's a little thing. Yeah, I got you, buddy. But Bonnie said she had something on her mind. She toyed around, and then she said there's something she wanted to say. Okay, what is it? Well, before I came out here for the ACMAs, your counselor at Betty Ford phoned me and asked if we were going to stay out here. I was supposed to take you to AA meetings every night. It didn't make me mad, although I'm sure she thought it would. No way. I do not need an AA meeting. What I needed was a trip to Florida with one of the T-Birds. 5 of us piled into my new Mercedes and headed south. We rented a beach house in Panama City and kicked back for a week. We sunned ourselves, rented a boat, and fished, ate ourselves silly, ran up and down the beach laughing like we're teenagers. I guess the one wild thing we do is go to those places that makes personal license plates and get the one for the Mercedes that said Ms. Badass. That's what she chose. The license plate made the papers many times over the years as proof of what a wild child I was. Maybe people thought I'd been drunk somewhere and bought it, but it was just me and Squirrely Bird, sober as judges. And in Panama City for Angel's 16th birthday, we never thought about ordering drinks. One day we went to Captain Anderson's where you roast your own coffee. That was the extent of the drinking. It ended all too quickly. In fact, the very next day we drove back to Nashville. I was sunburned, a little fatter, and a lot happier. I left on the bus that next night to play a show. I was back in Nashville for Easter, and Shirley invited me out to her lake house in Hendersonville for an Easter egg hunt. LaCosta came with me and brought her kids. For a year, I'd been hearing the faint ticking of my biological clock. It wasn't something that overwhelmed me, but I kept thinking that time was going to go by, and I started wanting to have children. Over the last several years, I turned my mother in instincts towards Costa's children and Don's kids. But being there and watching them happy kids chasing after all them Easter eggs, I turned to Shirley Porter and I said, you know what? I want to have a baby. We're on page 232, chapter 45. Well, thank you, Jeff, I thought as I stood there looking at the man Jeff McKay had just introduced as Ben Reed. It was May 26, 1988, little over 2 months after I checked out of Betty Ford, and I was playing a show at a Tulsa honky tonk. I'd met Jeff several years earlier taping a show called Downtown in L.A., and I continued to run into him at golf tournaments and other celebrity events. He was an actor with a good list of credentials, and including about 40 episodes of Magnum P.I. Wow. Jeff spent a lot of time in Tulsa since it was his hometown, and he'd come visit. And on this visit, he'd come to my show and brought a friend. What I couldn't believe what I saw. Ben Reed was tall, handsome, and looked like he could be a movie star. He was dressed in stark contrast, a pair of white Levi's and a black shirt, and he dominated the room. Ben was a doll, so I made a conscious effort not to appear too interested that night. I figured a guy who looked like that had more women chasing him than he needed. I wanted to think he was a pursuer, not me. He appeared to be a little aloof on the surface, but it didn't take long to see that he was a genuine, friendly, and nice guy. He told me he graduated from West Virginia University, and when I said he looked like a football player, he explained that he planned on going pro till he suffered some shoulder injuries. And he told me he planned to study acting in Pasadena, California, having auditions and been accepted to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Well, should we go another paragraph, Termites? Sure. We talked about Jeff's career, Ben's hope for getting into films, and what it took to break into acting or any part of the entertainment business. Ben believed perseverance was a key factor, and he was prepared to go to L.A. and keep plugging away until he made it. I've been through the L.A. mill, too, with Far Out, remember them? TNT and all the image and hype that went with it. Ben hadn't seen the underside of the business, and I hated to be the one to burst his bubble, so I didn't have much to say about his career plans. But we danced and talked, and I sneaked a few drinks in at the bar. Oh, Lordy. I knew it was coming. But I agree. I don't know that she hadn't reached her rock bottom in her mind. These other people decided it. And unless she decides it, she gonna start drinking again. I sneaked, be careful with the moonshine, people. It's so good. And the next thing you know, you're going to be, if you drink too much, you're going to be riding a small pony in Guatemala. You won't even know how you got there, and you won't know how to get home because your GPS won't work. I sneaked a few drinks in at the bar because I was a recent Betty Ford graduate. I didn't want to flaunt the fact that I was drinking. That's one thing Betty Ford's counselors hit right on the head. If you're around slippery places, you're probably going to slide. I was out playing clubs, and we all know what that means. And when I came through those swinging doors, I wanted to swing. When I left that night, I told him he should come to Nashville and visit sometime, and we exchanged phone numbers. A few weeks later, I played a gig in Oklahoma City, and Ben brought his parents to the show. We all went to a late dinner. I was very impressed with both of them. They were very gracious, and while they said they loved the show, they didn't seem to be affected by the whole star trip. I liked the fact that Ben seemed close to his parents. I felt like it was the beginning of a wonderful relationship with someone who had the same feelings about family that I had. For the next month, Ben and I talked on the phone almost every other day. I'd also spent a lot of the time on the telephone calling the T-Birds, telling the T-Birds about my new boyfriend. He's the most gorgeous guy. I'd tell the first one, then the other one. He's got a great personality. I'm just wild about him. I hated the fact that we were going to be so far apart. Ben went to Cancun on a graduation trip with a couple of his friends, and while he was there, he sent me a postcard that read, "Hope the invitation still stands. I'm coming to Nashville and would like to see you." Wow. It's getting salacious now, Termites. Tanya's going to have a boyfriend. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe she has a baby with this man. All right, Termites. Wisconsin. I've seen some dirty pictures of you guys There's some bad termites up there. At a sandbar? What are y'all doing up there? Come on, Wisconsin, you're better than that. You go social distance out at the New Glarus Brewery and sit there. Look at the pretty hills before it's fucking freezing there. Oh, that's all I got, termites. Still don't have a bra on. Yep. Oh, I was attacked by chiggers. Anybody interested in that? I set my golf club down, and then I sat down to pet my friend Dan's dog, and I think that's where the chiggers came. And then they went around the bra that I did have on because I was playing golf, and they ate a whole bra line. So I have bites in a perfect line all over. And if you've ever had chigger bites, A, they itch like crazy. B, it takes like a month for them to go away. So my advice in the summertime is don't stand next to trees. Don't put your hands in grass. Don't sit on plain grass unless you want chiggers up your ass. Thankfully, they didn't go up my ass. Whew. Okay, for those of you city folk who don't know what a chigger is, look it up. It's not, termites are better. You're better than chiggers. I could call you chiggers, but that's not as endearing. Termites have little jobs and they do them. They don't attack people. You don't have termite bites. Chiggers. Ooh. All right. This is my mom's, by the way. I stole it about 3 years ago, and I'm not giving it back. I don't think she knows. I'm sure she's not watching this. I literally called the other day, and she goes, "What do you want?" Oh, my God. I was just calling to see what you and Dad are doing. He's at the farm. Do you want to talk to him? Not if he's at the farm. All right, well, then I have to go. Okay, good talking to you. All right, termites. Get yourself cozy. Get yourself comfortable. Pull your sheet up. Know that you're a good termite. You're a worthy termite. Just as worthy as the rest of those termites. You're all the same amount of worthy. That's it. Night-night, termites.